This is 5.1b, part 2. All right, so now we're ready to look at the point-slope form. Point-slope form is very useful, especially if you're doing problem solving or if you're given a graph as a starting point. And with point-slope form, you always use this one as a starting place and then transfer to the other forms. Okay? It's never something you transfer into. So for this one, we have y minus y1 is equal to mx minus x1. So x and y in both of these are points. M is our slope. That's why it's slope point. And this x1 and y1 are a point that are given to you in the question. So here it says, using the point slope form, write the equation of a line that passes through a point 1, negative 2, with a slope of m is equal to negative 3. All right, so we're going to write this out. Y minus y1 is equal to m, x minus x1. Okay, so we're going to label this as x1, y1, and this is our m. So now we'll just replace the information. So our y1 is negative 2. But this is also a negative. So negative 2 gives us a positive 2. Our m is negative 3. And then here we have minus 1 because this was 1. Okay, so that's it for this kind of a question. You only have to put the information that you know into the formula and you're done. Okay. Next one is we starting with our point slope and then we change it into slope intercept or into standard. Okay, so you always start with point slope and change the other two, never the other way around. Okay, so our first step is going to be remove the brackets. So remember with slope intercept, I'll write them up here to remind you. This is y is equal to mx plus b. And standard is ax plus by is equal to c. So both of these, there's no brackets. So that's the first thing we want to get rid of, is the brackets. So to get rid of our brackets, we're going to take our whatever's in front here. So in this case, it's a negative 3. And we're going to multiply it. Make sure you multiply it to both terms inside the bracket. So to the x and the negative 1. A very, very common mistake is that people only multiply it here to the x. They forget about this second one. So it's going to multiply here and here. Oops. All right, so now we're going to rewrite everything else the same. Y plus 2 is equal to, now we're going to do this multiplication, negative 3x, negative 3 times a negative 1 is going to end up with positive 3. So that's our first step. Next, we want to isolate the y by moving the number next to the y to the left-hand side of the equals. So here, this y is by itself. So we need to get rid of this positive 2 and move it over here. So we're going to do the opposite sign. So here it's positive, so we'll subtract 2 from both sides. So now we have y is equal to negative 3x plus 1. And at this point, we have now found our slope intercept form. Okay, so if the question asked you for slope intercept form, you would be done at this step. Anytime you're going to standard form from point slope form, you always move through slope intercept form first. Okay, so you're always going to find slope intercept form on your way to finding standard. So now we're going to go from here and we're going to keep going to standard. So we've already, so the first thing we do is we see if there's any fractions. In this case, there are no fractions, so we don't have to remove any fractions. The next thing we want to do is we want to move this over to the other side so that it matches this form. So we're going to plus 3x to both sides. So we get 3x plus y is equal to 1. And now in this case, here there's no fractions, These are on the left, this is on the right, and everything, or this A is positive. So that's our final answer. Whoops, I should have highlighted this whole thing. That's our final answer for standard form. Okay. Okay. Now, what about if you have fractions in your initial question, in your initial point slope form? Okay, so why we reviewed fractions is some of these examples will have fractions in them that you have to deal with. Okay, so we're going to do the same steps. The very first thing still that we want to do is we want to get rid of our brackets. So this is going to multiply here and here. So I can rewrite y minus 1 over 4 is equal to, is equal to 1/2 x. Now for this next one, I'm going to do it over here. So we have 1/2 times 2 over 3. So 1 times 2 gives us 2. 2 times 3 gives us 6. And then this is a fraction that we can reduce. So I'm going to divide the top and bottom by 2. Oops, I didn't write it in red. So I end up with 1 over 3 is my final answer. So I can say plus 1 over 3. Okay, so I just did that in a little sidebar over here. So I have 1 over 3. So now I'm going to do the same thing that I did up here. Okay, I'm going to take this and I'm going to move it over to the other side. So I'm going to do the opposite here. This is subtracting, so I'm going to add a quarter to both sides. So I end up with y is equal to 1/2 x plus. So now I have to add 1 over 3 plus 1 over 4. I have to add that together. So if I want to add that together, I need to make a common denominator. So, oops, I made these too close together. There we go. So I'm going to multiply both this times 4 and this fraction times 3 to make a common denominator of 12. So I end up getting 4 over 12 plus 3 over 12. I know my answer is going to be over 12, so I add up 4 and 3. That gives me 7 over 12. So now I can write 7 over 12 here. And this one just says slope-intercept form. So then I'm finished at this step. I don't have to go any further than that. If it said go to standard form, I would then multiply everything to get rid of my fractions, and then I would move this over to this side. Okay, so now you're going to go to page 195, and you're going to do questions number 5 and 6. And then there's one more part to this section, so you'll come back for part 3.